OpenAI absolutely owned this week, releasing new models that can efficiently code and think with images.
That's right. O3 and O4 Mini are officially here, Kev, and the charts are out of control.
Did you see the chart of the charts?
These models are better across the board, and they're much cheaper, but we're going to explain why multimodal reasoning is really the big deal.
Well, I think the bigger deal is that everyone's turning their pets into people, and it needs to stop.
Whether you want to create something adorable like these pets or create something cursed, we are going to share the best image prompts from 4o Image Gen, including a way to make movie monsters into little cute kid stars. Look at him, Kevin.
Nope.
Look at Pinhead.
Nope, do not want. Plus, state-of-the-art video models. We got Kling 2.0 and Veo 2. They are widely available. We're going to deep dive into what that means for all of you. And we've got a free way to vibe code. But act now. It's this week only. Supplies limited.
Plus, James Cameron weighs in on our meat computers and a way for AI to talk to dolphins.
You're going to have to issue a dolphin apology, by the way.
Oh,
Gavin,
no, did I say something wrong in dolphin
You can get
language?
dolphin canceled for that. Yeah, you definitely did. Somewhere Echo is writing a tersely worded blog post. Also, by the way, no need to panic, but the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, said that human beings are basically cooked.
Kevin, come on, that's not exactly what he said. We don't want to be hype beasting here.
I don't think that's hype. I think that's basically exactly what he said,
No,
Gavin.
let's go through his words and let's figure out.
Okay, let's just play the clip.
Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this.
Okay, Kev, we're cooked.
This is AI for cooked humans.
All right, Kev, the day we've been waiting for is here. The O3 models are coming out. We've been waiting for this for a bit. Last December is when these models were announced, right? So
I am so full from the chocolate from my OpenAI advent calendar, Gavin. Every day I wake up, I peel it back.
where did you find
Rip
that?
the
Was
foil
that in,
off
like,
my
the,
Sammy
the
Altman?
dollar store? The dollar store had those still, like in February of this year?
Yeah, I'm a Dollar General shopper, and surprisingly, they are super into large language models there. No, what did we get, Gavin? We got O3, we got O4 Mini,
Yeah, it's pretty
and
cool.
we got GPT 4.1, but that feels like that was like years ago. What was
I
that,
know, it was
Monday?
on Monday. It was
Ugh.
Monday. But let's start with the O3 models, because the O3 model update, because that's the biggest deal. O3 is the state-of-the-art reasoning model from OpenAI. This is going to come out to Pro and Plus users today. And there's a couple big things that are going on here with this. The first and foremost thing to know is that this is just a much better model, like across the board. We joked about the charts in the beginning, but the benchmarks are all out there. We'll put some of them up here. Just know that this is a significant step towards better performance, especially in math and science. I'm actually, as somebody who hasn't done a lot of vibe coding myself, I know you have, I think the coding side of this could be really interesting. I also think the other thing to be aware of here, and the thing that's going to make the most news probably, is the fact that they are multimodal reasoning. So Kevin, shall we describe and try to translate that for the normal people in our audience to understand what that means?
So listen, they announced it. The blog posts, the news articles ran with the headline that these models can think with images. So that is both input and output. And if you're saying to yourself, well, haven't I seen that before? Sure, maybe you have, because there are other models that can do it. But this one, it does it better. You saw the charts of the charts, right? We just talked about that.
I saw the charts of the charts,
So,
yes.
so this means you can feed it a chalkboard sketch, a PDF that is upside down and blurry, by the way, something they point out. Not a problem for this. It can sort it out. Just as well as you could feed it a screenshot from your desktop or computer code or whatever. It can take the imagery in, it can intelligently sort it, even if it's blurry or low quality, and then it can spit out a result. And that result, by the way, can also be image-based. So you can get your results in the form of like a paper that is synthesizing a problem you've asked it to think about, and it can also provide you some charts or some illustrations to go along with it.
So the demo they showed was very technical today, and if you are interested in kind of diving in on that, but there had a blog post that points out what Kevin was talking about, but this idea of being able to flip over and see copy. They had a very interesting thing in there where basically they're almost like spying on somebody else's notebook from afar. Like it looks like they snapped a picture from the other side of the table, and the notebook's upside down. You can see the writing is upside down, and they say, "Can you tell me what this says?" And it goes through the process in this blog post. You can see the whole steps of it, flipping it around, learning about it, and then it produces an image back that shows what the words say. That is like a real big advance. And you can start to think and extrapolate out like, oh, I can do things now where it's not just like putting a picture in and then getting back a Ghibli image, which is still fun, but you can do all sorts of real world stuff. I will also say, Kevin, part of me thinks that 4.0 image gen might have a little bit of this baked into it for that exact reason.
Right. Or this might have a little bit of 4.0 image gen baked into either way, right? We know that the stated goal is to unify all of this under the banner of GPT-5 in the coming months, where you and I and everybody listening to this will no longer have to hunt on a drop down to find the right model for the best use case. It'll just do it. Yeah. And Sam has even expressed, please make fun of me for that. So yes, Sam, we are here to do exactly that. But this gets me excited for so many reasons. I love a near future where I can snap a photo and say, like, what is John Carmack thinking about me? And the blinds being in the way, only getting a little bit of his face through the hedges.
The answer is he's not thinking about you at all, Kevin. He's thinking about
wait
super
for OpenAI. I'll wait for OpenAI to weigh in on that, Gavin. Thank you. But number two, for the future of augmented reality, for these spectacles that we will all be walking around with, the notion that the universe is always going to present whatever you're looking at in a clean, easy to read, right side up, not tilted, not blurry, not with a glare on it. Like that's not the real world. Yeah. So models becoming more capable at deciphering problematic imagery, that becomes really, really interesting.
Yeah, a couple other quick things about this. It is going to completely replace the O1 models, which is interesting. So although they did say if you're an O1 Pro user, they don't have an O3 Pro yet, so that'll come a little bit later. There's also a pretty big coding update. This is a very technical thing, but they are basically dropping a in-terminal coding agent that allows you to directly use it within coding terminals. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This is a competitor, I think, to like Claude Code and some other offerings out there. But this is OpenAI dipping their toes directly in the, hey, developers, work with us on your code base waters. First of all, it's called Codex. It is, in fact, a command line agent. It is open source, which is different than others out there. So you can download it, you can modify it, you can help improve it with a community. And they showed off some interesting examples of it. It can run in a full auto mode. So if you want to develop something, maybe you want to make a website for your business, maybe you want to copy Photo Booth, Apple's Photo Booth in one shot, which is something that they did. They gave it a photo of Photo Booth. If you're not familiar, Photo Booth fires up your webcam and then lets you pick from all these different filters and effects, which are running in real time on your video feed. And you can do some cute photos. This was all the rage back in like, the early aughts?
Yeah.
This is pre-Snapchat filter. But the point is, they take a screenshot of what Photo Booth looks like, along with a few sentences of a description, and they say, recreate this in the browser. And in one shot, it does it. It fires up the camera. You have all the effects. There's your Photo Booth. So when we talk about vibe coding and dipping toes into those waters, yet doing it through a command line is precludes, I would say.
Sure,
it's nerdier, it's more efficient, but the barrier to entry is a little bit higher than some of the other tools we've seen, which are arguably still a high barrier to entry. So we'll talk a little bit later about stuff OpenAI might be doing to get everybody in the fold. But this was a cool announcement. It's a little nerdy. Yes, I geek out over it, but I'm glad that they're moving into this. But to round out the O3 stuff, at or near genius level, Gavin, was something that you pointed out to me. Like Sam Altman retweeted this.
Yeah, so this is from a doctor that was kind of like somebody that has been part of this conversation and been using O3 for a bit. I think, in fact, when O3 was announced, he'd already had access to it. This is Daria Unamatz, MD, which I apologize, Daria, if I'm destroying your name there. But one of the things I thought that was interesting from his tweet, this is what Sam retweeted this, is he said, when I throw challenging clinical or medical questions at O3, its responses sound like they're coming directly from a top subspecialist physician. Precise, thorough, confidently evidence-based, and remarkably professional. He also says it never hallucinates. and its new agent-style tools effortlessly handle multi-step tasks. Now, this sounds like a hypebeast guy, but this is a doctor who is actually spending time with this tool. And I do think the takeaway from this, there was a great story that came out in the information a couple of days ago, which kind of leaked a little tiny bit of some of this stuff. One of the very first things Greg Brockman said in the live stream today was that this is going to produce, quote, good and useful novel ideas. I do want to just zero in on the word novel, because novel in this instance means new, right? Or things that people haven't figured out before. And that's the thing that reasoning conceivably can get us to. Now, in the past, lots of people have said, look, AI is never going to come up with anything new. There are people out there now in the real world saying they are using this and that is actually driving novel ideas. In fact, Tyler Cohen, the very famous economist, just yesterday said that when the next models come out, he believes that they are smarter than him. So that is something interesting. I think we have to keep in mind from a real world perspective that until we get these in our hands and we try them and we do stuff with that isn't as hardcore coding or math based, we won't know that for sure. But Kev, I'm really excited to try like weird creative stuff with this too and see what it can do. Like Ethan Mollick has played with this and he has some good examples of stuff he's tried, including like documenting a battle in space in a sci-fi epic. But that feels like to me where we're going to get our hands on it and just see what can O3 really figure out from a novel standpoint.
It's hard to even wrap the little brain around, but like, have you thought about what happens like when we wake up one morning and these models are literally smarter than you and I, Gavin?
I think they're already smarter than you and I, Kevin. I hate to say it. Yeah, all right. I think we're already
and just to level set, yes, this is a comedy show. Gavin is just goofing, but yeah, it's hard to think about. It's hard to think about, but maybe by 2037 we'll be there. The also ran for the day, which should be exciting, is O4 Mini.
It's it's not an also ran. It's still very cool, right? It's the first O4 model.
It's the first O4 model. It's efficient. It's cost effective, designed for speed and scalability. But what does this mean in the context of the O3 release now, Gavin? Which one am I supposed to love? I can only pick one favorite.
Well, I think that it really depends on your use case, right? The O4 Mini is probably going to operate a lot like the O3 Mini did before. And a lot of people who were coding found that very useful. Some people did. It's also cheap, right? And it can run stuff in a much quicker way. I think we're not going to know what it's going to be great for until we really dive in ourselves on it, but that feels like the next step. What's so weird to me, Kev, is that like they released this thing O4 Mini, and yet they didn't talk about the O4 product at all. So it does feel like a weird name thing again. Is like, is this really O4 Mini, or are we seeing like O3 Mini Plus? You know what I mean? That's what it's a hard thing to know.
I'm struggling here because I want to go, where's oh yeah? And that's the Kool-Aid model. And I want
that's a pretty good idea.
I want to go to ChatGPT and
create the oh yeah model.
Sam Altman just released the oh yeah Mini, and it's just a tiny Kool-Aid bursting through a single brick.
Speaking of that, if you haven't been watching The Studio on Apple TV, it's great. And there's a very funny Kool-Aid subplot to it. Let's talk quickly about GPT 4.1, Kevin, before we move on, because this came out on Monday. But what was this? And it's mostly in the API, right?
God, Monday was such a year away. But yes, this came out on Monday. It is API access, meaning if you go to ChatGPT and try to interface with it, you can't. Although they did say that a lot of the stuff from 4.1 is actually making its way into the currently available 4.0 model there. So OpenAI is doing a lot with their models and their naming and folding in features. But basically, this is a model that is very capable, but specializes in code generation. And look, we love to talk about benchmarks because the line go up, and that's an easy way to show a lot of the times that these things are getting better. But one thing that's not exactly benchmarked right now are the vibes, as in the real use cases of these things and the way they feel to interact with them. And during their unveiling of 4.1, they had one of the Windsurf creators on. And Windsurf is a program that lets you create code using the power of AI and agents. And he had this to say, and I'm just going to play this real quick for you.
What we actually found was GPT 4.1 has substantially fewer cases of degenerate behavior. And maybe a couple examples here. We found that GPT 4.1 reduces kind of the number of times that it needs to read unnecessary files by 40% compared to the other leading models. And also, it modifies unnecessary files 70% less than the other leading models.
It got through puberty. It's no longer degenerate behavior. It is a lot. Like those numbers, yes, they're bigger numbers, but these are the important ones because if you start to dabble with these tools, and again, we encourage everybody to, if you start making a program, making an app, making a cell phone game, whatever it is you want to imagine in this world, the more times it calls files unnecessarily, the more cost, the more time it takes, the more error prone it can be by modifying a file that doesn't need to be modifying. So like these quick little statements are cannot be, I think, overstated. Like these are a big deal. And anecdotally, I took to 4.1 immediately and threw a problem at it that both Claude 3.7 and Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro, these are the state-of-the-art models from the competitors, they both struggled to fix a tiny little error in an app that you and I are working on, and 4.1 immediately and very quickly recognized the solution, wrote the code, and it worked. So
that's amazing.
This is purely anecdotal, but like that was a nice thing to have happen. These things are getting better every day.
Little breaking news, Kevin. Speaking of Windsurf, Bloomberg now is reporting that OpenAI might be looking to buy Windsurf for the little funds of $3 billion, Kevin. $3 billion.
That's like the screws on the Stargate. That's
yeah,
nothing.
exactly.
That's nothing to them.
It's so funny to me that like that's it. So an interest that's just literally is breaking like a few minutes ago. Windsurf is one of the, I'd say 3 or 4 big vibe coding platforms, really like a hardcore AI coding platform, including Cursor or Lovable or these other. I think the Bolt is another one. But if they brought Windsurf internally, that's a really interesting thing to think about what you would be able to do with a tool like O3 or O4 Mini and be able to integrate that directly in that tool and call it ChatGPT Code or something like that. So that's a big thing that just happened as well. It just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And so it looks like 40 billion of that 40 billion, 3 might be going to Windsurf.
And very quickly, if you want to try vibe coding, both Windsurf and Cursor, these are programs you can download, watch some YouTubes on how to get started with them, but they all are offering free 4.1 access for a week, basically. So you can get in there, jam as much ideas as you want into the machine, learn how it works, fail epically, and then fail again, and then eventually grind your way to a solution.
Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm super excited to learn more about these tools myself. I'm going to be diving into them. And, when it comes to like learning about them, it's clear that America is on the forefront of helping kids understand this stuff. Just recently, someone from the American government was at an educational conference and said this.
Letter or report that I heard this morning, I wish I could remember the source, but that there is a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting that far down in the grades. And that's
Hey, hold on. I'm sure. I'm sorry, Gavin. I'm sure that was Linda McMahon, who's our Secretary of Education.
Yes, that was our
I'm sure that was there's more to this. I'm sure that was just
that's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges. They just absorb everything. And so it wasn't all that long ago that we're going to have internet in our schools. Woo. Now, let's see A1 and how.
Can someone please get Linda McMahon a serifed font? We can't have this happening in the future.
That would make life so much easier. Let's just decide the fonts that we say the word AI in going forward. And Kevin, another font that I really love is the AI for Humans font, because you need to be able to look at that font across the YouTube channel, across the podcast, across our website, and across our newsletter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're not watching on YouTube, go there. If you are watching this on YouTube, check us out in our audio. If you're listening to both and on our YouTube, you should definitely be on our website and also reading our newsletter, which comes out twice a week. Kevin, we do it all for the people at home, and we actually couldn't do it without you. So please share, when you get a second, share one of the things you love that we make.
Hey, Gav, every week I see somebody in the YouTube comments going like, this is the best part of my week. I love what you guys do. I love this show. How does this channel not have 100 billion views?
Kevin, that's me.
And
that's me saying that.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're to blame because the answer is you have to tell people about it. We are too lazy and resource constrained.
That's right.
So
exactly.
Please and thank you.
Yes, and if you do want to help us, there's a tip jar in our Patreon that you can drop a few bucks into. But as always, we thank you for watching us. We have a ton of fun making this, and thank you so much. All right, Kev, we should move on to the next part of our OpenAI discussion today, because the big one, there's a couple stories here that kind of tie in together, and then we're going to get into what really cool 4.0 image gen prompts we want to share with everybody. First and foremost, there was a story from The Verge that ChatGPT is considering launching a social network, which, really around images. So what your first thought on this is what? What do you think about this?
The tic-tac-toe game between multi-billionaires is the most fun to watch when it doesn't affect the air I breathe or the water I drink. I mean, there's a bunch of scenarios where it's not fun, but this is a great shot against the Elon Musk or Twitter bow, because now I'm back to calling it Twitter, Gavin. That was a quick return. Listen, Twitter and Meta have these real-time fire hose streams. Now, OpenAI has that, but only in the context of people plugging their thoughts into ChatGPT. They don't have the conversations, the real-time reactions of human to human. They're not the breaking news place because, their models are a little dated until they can search the web. So I think their company needs access to real-time conversations, and they need everybody doing these things on their platform so that they can train from it in the way that Meta and X can.
It's interesting you say that, because I never thought of it that way, because I think what they're talking about for now is that it's going to be image-based, but that is a good point. I think the other side of this that I've been thinking a lot about as somebody who's been doing a ton of 4.0 image generation is I would like to follow the feeds of people who make things, right? And I know people are out there saying like, what a stupid idea. We don't need another social network. But like, this is an actual organizational idea that might make sense, because we're going to talk about in a second, like a couple really fun prompts that I found from users on Sora. I would like to be able to follow those people or to like the fact that they do it. Now, I can like an image on Sora right now, and if you have an image you've created, you'll see how many likes it got, but it's no sort of like public display. And actually, somebody smartly out there said, maybe this is a way for OpenAI to start paying creators, because as we know, every social platform, whether it's TikTok or Twitter, has a way to kind of share in content creation, payments. They're not giant, but that might be a way to open the door to sharing with some of the money they make from these products with creators themselves.
I'll caution that, I was only able to buy 3 Cybertrucks with the income that I got from my custom chat GPTs, which they told us all would make us very wealthy when we gave them all the data and made these custom chat experiences. I think images are a tip of the spear. I think this eventually grows to be, if they go this direction, a fully fledged social network. But I similarly want to follow creators, and I want to remix their prompts and do all of those things. And right now, the experience of Sora almost feels like that on the main page. But once you dive any deeper, that falls apart. There's no comments, there's no rankings, there's no whatever. But on the traditional social network side of it, Gavin, like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I just assume now by default the conversations that I see on X and even sometimes on Threads, but probably lesser so, I feel like, I assume it's a bot by default.
Right.
And then
I don't feel that way, by the
way.
I know you feel that
totally
way.
Feel that
I know. It's interesting. Like, it depends on, I guess, what your interactions are and how big your handle is. Because on X for you have a pretty big handle, so you're probably getting quite a few bot engagements. And maybe for me, it's not the same. But it's interesting. I'd be really curious to kind of dive in on what you see as a bot and what you don't see as a bot response, because I don't really have a sense yet of what they feel like and how real they are, because I feel like I should be able to tell what a bot is. But that said, like, either way, I think that social networks have that problem going forward, and that maybe, to me, the biggest thing is about discovery, because like I said, we're going to get into these prompts and talk about what made them interesting. And a lot of that is discovery, right? So to dive into this, the Sora homepage is a place right now, if you click on the Images tab or the Explore tab, where I have discovered all sorts of fascinating prompts, right? And the biggest one that, like, we talked about one last week that I had found there and I shared, but we're going to go through a few more now that they're there. And, this is how creativity gets discovered, right? It sometimes is remixing somebody else's thing and then, like, being able to bring it to the next level. On Sora, you can go on to that homepage and find these things. And I want to talk about the Pets to People one we should probably start with, because this one went fully mainstream, right? Like, I mean, it's so mainstream that it ended up in the New York Post, which is hilarious to me. If you haven't seen this, This is where you take a picture of your dog and you can make them into a human. I shared on X a very funny picture of my dog, Ollie, who turned into what looked like the bassist from Phish, which made me laugh. It's like this kind of guy with a goatee. And then he was there. What's interesting is like it kept the same guy, because I took a picture of him looking out, and then I looked down at him when he was up by the table, when I was at my dining table, and it's just the guy's head right there. So this went fully mainstream, but then you were able to flip this in an interesting way.
Yeah, super. And that's why we talk about being inspired by something and then remixing it. I took that same prompt. I mean, I transformed my little Dr. Wesley into a human, and it made me like him a lot less. So I stopped that practice.
Yeah.
It was nightmarish. But I flipped the prompt basically and said, transform this human into an animal character, enhancing all of their human features with animal traits like fur, ears, whiskers, muzzle, tail, etc. Preserve the personality, the recognizable traits. It was the same prompt that everybody was sharing to turn their pets into people. And I started turning my friends into animals. Then I started turning famous, like iconic movie scenes into animals. I got the Goodfellas poster, which chose different animal breeds for everyone. I turned Uma Thurman. It turned her into a smoking, smoldery black cat. Our favorite Guy Fieri gets turned into like a clearly excitable pup who has issues with marking. I can see it in his little doggo eyes. And then I turned the Queen cover into cats, like, again, taking the same basic prompt and just flipping it slightly. And I had so many friends saying, well, how do you do this though? What is the path? And usually that means downloading some models into Pinocchio, or connecting nodes in Comfy UI, or signing up for a Bazaar service. And the reality with this is that you can just go right to chat.com, which takes you to ChatGPT, and you can copy and paste the prompt, which we'll put in our show notes. You can just put that prompt in there and click and drag a picture of your pet or your best friend that you want to turn into your best pet friend. Like, it's that easy now.
I want to talk about these images of these little golden books. So if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you probably had these little books that were like kids' books. I saw a very funny Sora post from a guy named OSU Fan 77. So like clearly a Ohio State guy there. He had created a prompt for Freddy's Treehouse. And the prompt is this. We'll share it on the screen, but if you're just listening, create a cover for a little golden book from 1979. It's used and worn. The title is Freddy's Treehouse and shows Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. And in this case, it was like in the treehouse having fun. I basically took that prompt and just used it, but changed a few things in it. I changed the title, I changed the character, I changed the movie name, and then I said what different things it does. The thing that this added, which was kind of fun at the end, is he also says, add some funny exposition at the bottom. So what I then created was a series of other movie villains in these same scenarios. And I added Pinhead Makes a Friend, where it says at the bottom, he's a troublemaker from another dimension, but he sure is swell. And it's like Pinhead kind of looking sad with a nice guy next to him. Leatherface got left out, which is like the character from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. And then Jack's Bad Day from The Shining. Basically, what's cool about this is like you can still find your way to do really creative stuff with known IP if I think you're doing it in a transformative way. Now, who knows what the rules will be like on this going forward, but this is like satire, right? And we talk about IP rules. You and I both know these a lot. There's an argument you can make here that this is satire. You're taking a horror movie and you're putting it in a very childish situation. So there are ways to use this creatively to use known IP.
If you're a billionaire, if you're Jack Dorsey or Elon Musk, you would say that IP shouldn't even exist, Gavin.
That's
something
true.
they said this
that
week.
Is something.
That there should be no IP laws.
And Elon echoed it, right? Which is hilarious to me. Two billionaires should not be talking about creative people and how they make their money, I feel like. By the way, we do have a split audience on this. There are people in our audience who believe that IP shouldn't exist, which I understand. But as somebody who's creative, it is a tricky thing to sell creative people, I think, mostly on the idea that what they might create and own does not have some sort of value, because that is how creative people might be able to make money. You don't want to live a gig economy life for your whole life if you're creative in some form.
But the only way to wash away the inevitable onslaught of lawsuits that are going to happen in the next few years is to just make it a totally forgivable sin. There's no IP. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about Barbie, because you did a fun exploration.
Another one that I did, which was really fun, on Sora's homepage, I found somebody trying to recreate a Barbie image. So I said, photo of a colorful 1970s full-page ad for a toy, Mattel, quote, Barbie dream, and then you put whatever the dream is in the next part. Realistic, with a sales text, logo in the bottom in the corner, used photo. And so I created Barbie's Dream Las Vegas Casino, and I created Barbie's Dream Senate hearing. And my favorite one was Barbie Dream Wall Street Boiler Room, where she's like trading. And there's another little kid that I put in there where the kid has a phone and Barbie's got a phone. And the title is, "No, She Can Make It to the Top in the Fast-Paced World of High Finance." I didn't write that. The AI wrote that. And it's just a very cool way of seeing what the AI is possible. And then, like last week, all of the thread became everybody else using it in fascinating ways, right? Like somebody created the Luke Skywalker's Tauntaun carcass, which is a Star Wars toy where you see the actual carcass and Luke inside of it. But like just dumb stuff like this adds so much joy to the world of creative stuff.
I stumbled across a unremarkable iPhone selfie prompt that was yielding these blurry and just almost disposable camera-esque images. And so I used it to imagine what celebrities look like at Coachella while they're waiting in line for the porta potties, as well as hallucinating a Guy Fieri trip to Tokyo. I mean, just super fun. And again, now it's as easy as taking the prompt, adding your little special sauce to it, remixing it, and there you go. And you can combine prompts too. So if you want a pet selfie where your pet is a human in Tokyo or at Coachella, have at it, mash it up.
Or you can take Kevin Pereira and put him on his first day of school. Kevin, look at this. Oh, it's Kevin's first day of school.
Don't do that. Actually, you can't do that. Don't do that.
Kevin, let's do a hard swap. Let's do a hard swap from very fun little kids to the former head of Google telling us that we might all be cooked. You're the one who put this in here. Tell me what this is and why we're talking about it here.
So this is Eric Schmidt, as you said, former CEO of Google. He says that within 6 years, these computer minds will be smarter than the sum of humans. And this is something that you and I have talked about. People debate the timelines, but the timelines are sort of narrowing in on the predictions that people had a year or two ago. There's a little flexibility, but basically he says the computers are now self-improving. And I think DeepMind kind of showed this. They used AI to come up with a new reinforcement learning algorithm that was more optimal for reinforcing its own learning. Yep. So there's this flywheel happening where we know that at some point the machines are going to get better at improving themselves at a rate faster than the humans. Once that happens, the collective conscious, the intelligence of these machines is going to far surpass all of humans. Here's what he has to say about this future, not only being inevitable, but how we're going to struggle to comprehend it.
What happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it.
Okay, so that sounded like a threat, but also a promise. We're not going to stop it. So what happens when this does happen?
This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free.
Did you hear that, Gavin? It's underhyped. We haven't been hyping enough.
This is something that we've talked a lot about in this show, but also I've been thinking a lot about is this idea that we are barreling fast into a world that we do not recognize or do not see. I have 2 teenage daughters, and like there is a point where at some world where by the time they're 30, this timeline will have passed. Right now, if that timeline happens, which Eric believes, a lot of the AI people believe, we are going to be looking at a very different world. And again, as we talked about with the AI 2027 paper last week, the kind of science fiction kind of projection of where we could go, most important, I think, for everybody listening to this is to just kind of have an awareness that this is possible, that it is not impossible that this exists, that in 5 years, 10 years, we are living in a world where these machines are significantly smarter than us. And we really do have to start thinking as humans how we fit into a world where that exists. Okay, Kevin, Kling 2.0. We are talking state of the art. AI video is out. I have played with it. It is very cool. This is the Chinese model Kling has come out. That was a little over the top, I think, but just to be clear, it is very good. Kling 2.0, I would say, is the best image to video model that I've used to date. There's some very cool stuff. Some really big AI video creators have used it. My experience with it is the best in terms of motion. It also, they launched some pretty interesting things with it added an update to colors to their imaging model, which allows you to, create images within Kling itself. It is not cheap though, Kevin. I will say to use Kling 2.0 for a 5-second output is about 100 credits. Now that's only 81 cents if you have the most expensive premium plan per month, which is like, I guess $70 a month, which is not cheap, but you get 8,000 credits for $70.
How many rollover credits do I get? And then do I have to pay for roaming credits, Gavin? What if I'm not
I do
in
hate
a
the idea of credits
Platinum
with AI
Plus environment?
It does feel like we're in this world.
The credits thing is kind of nauseating, especially when it's credits on top of a subscription tier, but digress on all of that. The point is, like, it is a powerful tool, even though it may be expensive. And did you see Taylor Swift in the Succession scene? Did you see?
Yes, I did see that. Tell us what we're looking at here for the people that are just listening to this.
Yeah, this is the ability for AI to replace a character in a scene by being given a basic image. So they take there's a iconic scene in the new season of Severance where Adam Scott's character is looking about and the camera's whizzing around and going ahead and circling about him as he's running down a hallway, and they just swapped in Taylor Swift into the scene, and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. Overall, I did run through my night with rotisserie chickens through it, which actually the version of that looked pretty good. If you take a look, what's funny is like it's a 10-second clip. He runs in a grocery store and kind of gets dissuaded by one guy, and he actually runs out of frame and then comes back into frame and continues running through the grocery store, which was very cool. So that was, I would say, a huge win. The kind of downside was I created a thing where there was an image of dogs and cats fighting in what was a war in some way. And this is a very complicated image. And I said, like, animate this image and try to have the dogs kind of come over the cats. Clearly, it messed up a few things, but that's asking a lot of this image. One really interesting use case of this is I created a still in Sora of a Lego character walking across a tightrope. And what it was really good at, and I think Kling really is successful at, is like single character animated in a special place. And if you watch this video, Kev, I just sent you, it's like, really it gets like the kind of stop motion thing of it walking, and then I had it fall off. But like, you can see there's one little part of that where you can see the foot looking weird, but the rest of it feels like that almost would be a stop motion animation still, right?
You could cut around this. No, you could cut around this believably. The fact that it actually gets, if you look on the building on the left, and if you're on the audio version of this, I highly encourage you look at this example on our YouTube. You see the reflection of the Lego hand and a little bit of the pole in one of the bricks. Like, that was a phenomenal nail. The subtle sway of the buildings as the character walks along the rope, like that's a physical modeling of the world that this Lego character exists in. And it is like, forgive the wonkiness of the foot and the pole as he blurs and falls. It's impressive.
I was shocked. I was really impressed by it. So the other thing that happened, Kev, this week in AI video is that Veo 2 is out for the public. So you can try it. It is limited in how many you actually get to try. But if you're a Gemini subscriber, supposedly it's in the app. I haven't been able to see it yet, but somebody told me you get, I think, 100 gens a month, if that sounds right, which is actually not bad. And again, Veo 2 is very good. So I would put Veo 2 up against this model, Kling 2.0 and Runway Gen 4. I would say probably I put Kling 2.0 at the top, but Veo 2 is very good. The hard part about Veo 2 for me, Kev, is that I asked it to create some stuff, and I tried to get it to create the image of the war cats and dogs. It refused. It refused to create like 4 other things for me. So I wonder if they're very much like putting a filter on what it will make and what it won't make, because I think Google's a little more sensitive than, say, OpenAI would be about what people are doing with their tools.
Well, OpenAI did just double their user base basically in the course of a week by taking the guardrails off of ImageGen. So maybe Google would want to look to that. They've got really capable models. Let people have fun with them. Obviously, we have thoughts about using these various tools to make AI video, but what about someone known for traditional video who has thoughts on AI tools, Gavin? Have you heard of James Cameron?
Yes, I have, Kevin. And James Cameron, the director of a little movie called Avatar, is come out and he is talking again about AI. And specifically, this quote is really interesting. He talks about the idea of what the training source for art is. Let's play this so people can listen to it.
The thing that's I've been thinking about lately, because a lot of the hesitation in Hollywood and entertainment in general are issues of the source material for the training data and who deserves what and copyright protection and all that sort of thing. And I think people are looking at it all wrong, personally. I think we are all, I'm an artist. Anybody that's an artist, anybody that's a human being is a model. You're a model already.
Yeah.
You got a 3.5 pound meat computer. You're not carrying all the training data with you. You're creating a model as you go through life to process quickly through that model every new situation that comes on. And as a screenwriter, you have a kind of built-in ethical filter that says, I know my sources. I know what I liked. I know what I'm emulating. I also know that I have to move it far enough away that it's my own independent creation.
Right.
So I think the whole thing needs to be managed from a legal perspective as what's the output.
Yeah, that's
not
right.
what's
So
the
that's
input.
that's the interesting thing that James is saying here, which I think is a slight shift as to what we look at here, meaning that he is saying the inputs, training on all this material is not really that controllable. And also it's what makes us. We train on material. So if it's weird to let the computer not do that, I mean, there's obviously that's a simplification of that argument, but also much more legal issues. The thing he's saying, though, is that the output, if the output looks like something that is too close to something else, that's where you start to think about, like, where does that happen? Now, one thing that does is it takes off the burden off of companies like OpenAI and AI companies and puts the burden
Maybe
on the
even
individual
stability,
user.
Which
Yes.
James Cameron is involved with.
Very
just
good
to be
point.
clear.
Very good point. And also, this is the kind of basis of YouTube's big copyright situation as well. So with YouTube, when you actually do things where you get a copyright strike, that's my fault, not the company that allowed me to put that thing together, right? So this is transferring some of the burden onto the user, which actually I don't think is a bad idea. I'm still not sure how that will get enforced, or what is the Ghiblification of images too close to Studio Ghibli, or if you just use Mononoke or you just use characters from Ghibli, is that the violation? That's what we're not sure of yet. But I did think from Cameron, you're right, he is an AI investor now as well. But that is an interesting point to me that he's making.
And in our extended play 4-hour podcast, we'll begin to scratch the surface of the tip
Somebody
of the iceberg.
will want that. Somebody will want
that.
that.
Are those arguments. But somebody does want something from AI, and that's China. They
Yes.
want NVIDIA chips, and it turns out, Gavin, they're going to get their hands on less of them because
Yes.
there are now new restrictions on some powerful new technology.
So you know that we are not really a political podcast, but there are some big things happening in the world, and these are very important things for you to be aware of, and I think it's worth diving into a little bit further, both involving NVIDIA, which really is one of the most important companies in the world right now, specifically because they provide the chips that power this AI revolution we talk about all the time. Two big stories happened with NVIDIA. First and foremost, there is a new restriction on NVIDIA for selling specific chips to China. Now, if you've been following the news, you know there's a whole lot of conversation going on about tariffs in a lot of bad ways. They have messed up a lot of things for a lot of people. And in this instance, what the conversation really is about is less about tariffs and more about whether or not America will sell the chips to its essentially largest rival, and if there's a way to stop them from getting access to these things. Now, why would America want to do that? Well, there's a couple big reasons. From a geopolitical reason, you'd want to make sure that if you control something, that you would allow your geopolitical rival to get that same thing. But two, I think in part this allows at least a possibility that we might be able to control, say, a rogue AI or another AI from China that would do much better than us. Kevin, this did not do great for NVIDIA's stock. It knocked NVIDIA's stock down about 5% yesterday when they were said, because essentially from a business standpoint, this means that NVIDIA might have less customers.
Are they hurting for customers, though, by the way?
Well, I think the big thing is NVIDIA can scale up conceivably to as many people as will buy chips, right? And if you say suddenly that an entire second, the biggest country in the world from a population standpoint is less capable of buying those things, and more so even might physically start to say, we don't want you because you're restricting us, that does lose a lot of potential customers. The other thing, though, that NVIDIA did, which I think is important to realize, is that they also said, hey, we're going to make $500 billion worth of chips in America. So this is a big story because people have talked about the idea of Taiwan being the main place where many AI chips are. And when you think about China and how close they are to Taiwan and the kind of political backstory there, it is very possible that sometime in the future, this is just possibility, there might be conflict in that area. Onboarding a lot of chip manufacturing in America is probably a smart thing. So these two stories kind of popped up, and because of the O3 and O4 mini stories are going to get blown over, but like this is vitally important to how AI moves forward as well.
It's just not as fun as turning your pet into
It's
a person,
true.
but that's
It's
okay.
true.
We
It's
got to
true.
cover it all, including the things, Gavin, that you and I come across on the social media bubbles each and every day that stop us dead in our tracks and make us say, hey, I see what you did there.
Sometimes you're scrolling without a care, then suddenly you stop and shout, AI, see what you did there. AI, see what you did there.
All right, Kevin, we have three very great things today for AI. See what you did there. First and foremost, one of my favorite things I've seen in AI in a long time,
Dolphin Gemma.
Dolphin Gemma. Dolphin Gemma.
I wanted to say it first.
You
Dolphin
said it. You said
Gemma.
it. Dolphin Gemma is a new AI that is being created by Google for dolphin researchers to help us understand what dolphins are saying. And when we've talked about this idea for a while of how language can be interpreted in different ways, this makes a lot of sense. And in fact, the funny thing to
Dude, they
me
got
is,
divers going down into the water with friggin' speaking spells that are circuit bent on their wrists, and they can push buttons and talk to dolphins and try to decode what they're saying. That is just cool.
yeah, you know, if you remember Star Trek 4, do you remember Star Trek 4, the movie Star Trek 4 at all?
I do not get
Okay, so Star Trek 4, one of the big storylines is they had to come back in time to talk to the whales of this time to figure out what had happened, because somehow the whales are gone in the future and they needed to be able to communicate. This is a version of that. Like, we are building that thing in the real world. And the other side of this thing that Kevin made me laugh is we are really not that far away from a pet translator. If this happens, you know pretty soon you're going to be hearing from your dog or your cat. Little
Yes.
Wesley will be able to talk to you directly and say all the things that he's wanted to say forever and probably put you in your place, I would assume.
I like Shark Tank a lot, and I already hate the next 4 seasons when everybody is there with some sort of wrapper that lets you talk to your plants, talk to your pet, have a chat with your Prius. Like, I don't need that. But talking to dolphins is in fact cool. So I'm okay with that.
What do you expect the dolphins to say? Like, if we finally understand them, what do you think they're going to say first?
Ooh, we love doing tricks for salmon. If you could please do more of that.
Salmon?
Put us,
Dolphins don't eat salmon,
What are they,
Kevin.
sardines? Does it matter? What are they?
Salmon are in cold water. I don't think dolphins are up there. They might.
Thank
now
you.
I might be wrong. I might completely be wrong. I fully admit it. I'm a human being, not an AI. Maybe dolphins do eat salmon.
Or maybe that's what we'll find out, is that they hate the fish selection we've been giving them. Maybe they really want popcorners, Gavin. That's not the point. The point is
Not
they
an
don't want to
ad.
be
Not an
in
ad.
fish prisons. How about that? That's
Not
all
an ad,
I was
but
saying.
popcorners, if you want to send us a bunch of free stuff, we'll take it. I eat popcorners. You eat popcorners sometimes?
You can keep me in captivity as long as you feed me all natural white cheddar popcorners.
I like the kettle corn one better. But okay, we're moving on. Next thing up, at TED this week, Jason Zada, friend of the show, somebody who I know well, is the CEO of a company called Secret Level. If you remember, they made the Coke AI ad, did a very cool thing where he took from the audience requests and then 2 days later turned it into a really compelling short movie featuring a beaver, an anthropomorphic beaver that lives underwater and is waiting to kind of see his wife, and has a, this is going to sound weird when I say it out loud, you have to go watch the video, has a relationship with a sock. So it's very charming. If you're seeing it in our
Don't we
video
all,
right now.
Gavin? Don't judge our love. I want a translator so I can talk to that sock and hear what it has to say.
You definitely don't want to talk to Kevin's sock, but in this case, the sock is very cute. It's got googly eyes, and you just see the power of what VO2 can actually do when it's in a storyteller's hands. And again, this is a 2-day project, and I know people will think this is hyperbole, but like, it kind of looks like those early Pixar, maybe even like
I was just going to say, no,
shorts.
it could be it could be a Pixar short, when you, especially when you think about the early days of their mostly tech demo stories.
Yes.
But the fact that you could feel from this, the fact that it felt like a narrative, it was playing to the strengths of AI generated video, and it was all text to video. They weren't even generating images and then transferring those into motion. So this was incredibly impressive. It was the kind of thing that would have taken a team months and tens of thousands of dollars to render. So, I mean, Jason and his team are definitely on top of it. It was a fun watch. Everybody should watch it.
Yep.
And last but certainly not least, if you decide to render AI video and everybody in the audience does, there may be fires at a server farm. But don't worry, we no longer need to send humans into the fray to extinguish it because we've got
shoulder-mounted robot fire extinguishers.
Oh, please say that in like the 80s action figure way that it would be presented if you could buy it.
Oh, wow, shoulder-mounted fire. Hold on. Oh, wow, shoulder-mounted robot fire extinguishers. I can't believe it.
Whoa, these shoulder-mounted robot fire extinguishers are the coolest.
This is pretty cool, though. So this is basically you see a robot walking through a field, and on its shoulder has like fire extinguishers, cannons, essentially, pushing out the fire extinguisher stuff. Kevin, though, the thing when I watched this video that made me think more than anything else is what else could be mounted on those shoulders?
Well,
missiles, for God's sakes, rocket launchers and missiles. And this is the Terminator. I've seen that movie a billion times.
This is how they're going to quell the future protests as the humans are on the street and they send one Unitree G1 with some like neurotoxin or sleeping gas or something to just walk on through and spray the crowd down. Like, yeah, look, if this were Elon, he probably would have put flamethrowers on the shoulders and been like, ha, cool.
Yeah.
But here, I mean, this is helpful, but it does evoke the imagery of, they could shoulder mount anything, projectiles included. So
it's
cool
one of those
things.
things. I mean, listen, robots are fascinating, and eventually we're going to get there, as we saw with the reasoning models at the top of the show. Like, we're going to get there much faster than maybe originally thought. Kevin, this weekend, I had a very interesting experience. We talked about some of the things we do with AI that I wanted to kind of quickly go through to have people understand. We talked about Gemini Pro 2.5 last week, and if you go to aistudio.google.com, that is a place where you can actually play with a bunch of models. And I know this is another thing about Google. The Gemini app is their main app, like that is their ChatGPT. But then aistudio.google.com is this place where they throw a bunch of tools together, right? And like, I don't know why they have two separate things. I don't understand it. Maybe it's more like the kind of place that you can try things. Something we talked about a long time ago, and I had never really dug into until this weekend, is the Stream tab on that page. And what Stream is it watches you along while you're doing something. You can basically share a tab of your browser with Google while you're doing it. I was working on something this weekend in Premiere Pro, and I do some editing, not a crazy amount, but I needed to learn how to make a specific type of mask, and I was getting frustrated, and I said, I'm going to try this. I'll just see if it works. I spun it up. It steps you step by step through everything. It sees your screen. You can highlight specific things. And it told me how to make this mask in real time. And I found it transformative. Like, I really think people need to try this particular thing. If you have Gemini, you can do it. If you have a question of doing anything like technical that can be seen on a website, it can tell you what you do. And then you ask it questions. Like, I had a thing with the mask. It was like, hey, I pushed this button here. Is that the right one? It's like, no, that's the wrong one. You need to go to this thing. There were a few moments of frustration, but it really did feel like the future of how AI can help you do stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people have approximated this behavior, myself included, by grabbing screenshots and feeding them to ChatGPT or Cursor or whatever and saying, hey, here's this thing. How do I do it? And you get the step-by-step hand-holding. But this is like paired programming where you've got someone in real time, like your R2-D2 is riding shotgun and bleep blooping you.
That's exactly what it felt like, because I've done the same thing. I've uploaded pictures like, hey, tell me how to do this. In fact, I was doing it with ChatGPT prior, and that's what frustrated me, because I was like, why am I doing all these separate steps? I went to it, and it really becomes way easier. So I really do recommend everybody go try this. Just go to aistudio.google.com. Check it out. It's super fun. Kev, did you try anything with AI this week?
Nope. Bye, everyone.
Bye.